Hello, everybody. I'm Alessandra Morassutti. I'm a registered homeopath, and I'm here tonight. This is my first show that I'm hosting, and I'm very excited to start this process with one of my most favorite topics. This is a topic that is really close to my heart, and tonight you will meet some lovely friends and people I know that I've been able to convince that this is also close to their hearts. I'm very excited. I have started a spiritual physics book club, and tonight we've going to take it on camera, and it's an opportunity to bring this topic out into more people, hopefully, and also an opportunity for some of us to have an experience on camera if we haven't had one in the past. So it's going to be a little bit different and fun for all of us, I hope. So welcome, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about my interest in spiritual physics. Started when I visited a spiritual community in northern Italy called Damanhur, which was about 5-6 years ago now. And I was in an introductory course of spiritual physics. The topic was so fascinating. It introduced so many different ideas, so many different concepts that when I was in the class, all I could think of, I want to bring this course back to my friends, and I want them to have an experience like I'm having about these different ideas that I can feel have a lot of substance to them, and I just want to delve deeper into them. And this is, I've done some book clubs on the topics in the past, and this is the first time I'm taking it live on camera like this. And I have these lovely people that I'm going to introduce you to soon to share this first book club meeting of spiritual physics. So I'm going to pass it over to my dear friend who's in studio with me. And what I'm going to ask all of you to do is to say your name and just to say your interest in wanting to study this. And please don't say that I twisted your arm, I forced you, or anything like that. Just why you would like to study this book, your interest. It can be short, a little bit longer, so we'll start with that.
Look.
And the first person I want to introduce you to is a really dear friend of mine, Elizabeth Talenti, and she's here in studio with me. She made the trek down to the center of the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. And I look at the back camera and say, she forced me. She forced me. No. You know, I remember when you started and you went to Demonor and came back with all this energy. And I mean, my journey into spirituality and the universe, that started over a decade ago. And so that's why I'm kind of here, because you have inspired me through Damanhur and what you talk about and through the books that I read. And I just, you're so excited. I'm excited to be here and to learn more. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Brava. Thank you.
Did I say my name?
Yeah.
So,
you did say your name.
I don't know.
Yeah, she did say her name. Okay, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Grazie.
And I'm going to say, Duncan, would you go next and introduce yourself and just a little bit about your interest in the topic and all those wonderful things.
Okay. My name's Duncan Spence, and my wife, the other Elizabeth, in the call tonight. And I were in Damanhur with Alessandra and a few of the other people on this call earlier in September. And we've been following things in Damanhur and like-minded communities, although they're all different around the world, for a while. And when we sat in the spiritual physics workshop, and it was enlightening, to say the least. And once we got into the book, it reminded me of a very famous saying it's one that Wayne Dyer always used to say, that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And once you start reading this book, everything you look at changes. It really does. And I'm so excited to be part of this. I can't get enough of this book. It's amazing.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank Thank you. Vesla, you're at the top row, so I'm going to go to you next. If you would say a few words.
All right, my name is Vesela. I have to say a lot of the things that Alessandra that you said, and also Duncan, I really resonate with them. I went to Damanhur in 2017 in the summer and attended I think it was like a 4-hour class in spiritual physics, and I was just so fascinated. I couldn't get enough. I kept asking questions, and after, unfortunately, the class had to end, I was, how can I, I was just wondering, how can I learn more about this? So when I came back to the States, I found the book, bought the book, read it like a novel once, twice. And everything that I read, I didn't understand. I cannot say I understood everything, but all of it made such a sense, like it resonated as the truth, and it really did something very interesting. It just kind of summarized all things that I've been reading through so many years, and just like put it all together in this like amazing, beautiful esoteric system of knowledge. It's just it's a beautiful book. It's a amazing, magical. Not one topic. It discusses many topics. So I've been trying to do a spiritual physics book club here in Minneapolis, and has not been very easy. Unfortunately, I haven't found many people who, like you and the other people in this group, resonated with it. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Vesela. Thank you. And Cindy, now that we can hear you, a few words about you and your interest.
My name is Cindy, and ever since we went to Damanhur together in September, I just cannot get enough of Damanhur. And I'm reading the book, and I cannot explain it, but I feel it.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it to anybody, but there's so many yes, 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 oh my gosh, yes. So I just want to learn more as much as I can. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. And Elizabeth, what would you like? It's your turn. Say a few words about yourself and your interest for us.
To start with, thank you for having this platform. It's great to have to be able to talk to everybody. And again, as the others are saying, when we went to Damanhur, it was amazing. It was just mind-blowing as to a lot of the things that we've talked about, or that they felt true, but we couldn't share with anybody else before. It was like, well, I feel this, but is this true for me, and is it true for everybody? And then when we were there, when we sat through that, through the talk, it was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. So it was really, really great. And now to hear that so many people are interested. Like Duncan was saying also, reading the book, it's opening my mind and my thirst for learning more. So I have lots of questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get through some of them. But I think we're going to start to page 63. I think that might be a good target to go to.
Oh,
so thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Eva, you're the last one there. We know we can't see you, but we can definitely hear you. So if you would like to say a few things.
I haven't read any of the book yet, but definitely interested. But I've kind of followed this type of topic in other groups, so it's not entirely new to me. Yeah. A lot of it is, very similar, and so I'm right in the boat with you guys.
Beautiful.
And hopefully I'll find wherever I hid my book, so I can start reading it.
Beautiful. Well,
I did buy it, but I just have to find it.
Okay. Well, this will inspire you, and it will also start to open up these ideas. You all touched on this, and I want to just talk to it. One of the reasons for doing the book club, and Vesla, don't give up. You will find your group. These are the people that I took on tour with me. That's also something that I do. I organize groups and I bring them. So these were people that spent time together and really started to get really touched by their experiences in Damanhur, and I want
You
to
know,
go deeper.
I almost wonder if it makes difference for the people who actually visited Damanhur and the temple, if that somehow energetically affected them to where they have very similar reactions, like, oh, this is true, like, yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
had the same reactions reading the book, but not, people who are reading the book that I haven't been to Damanhur don't seem to have those reactions.
Well,
So it's an
neither
interesting
have I.
idea that I have.
Neither have I. I haven't been there either, right? And so it was interesting because everyone who's been to Damanhur, they come with a different energy if you feel it.
but you've been touched. Is it
Well,
because-
your energy on this
Okay.
subject just gets,
She's influenced by me.
and yeah, so
Okay.
good object. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's
because you
probably-
bring that energy when
Yeah.
you come back, and you're like, oh, Bala, and I have to tell you, and this happened, and it's like I'm there, but I'm excited to go.
Yeah.
like, it just.
That's true.
That was
So
a
maybe
good
you're right.
observation.
Good.
right?
So Vesla, yes, maybe once people go there, something opens. I do want to share this with you, and why, Vesla, I don't want you keep searching for your group, and I want to share this with all of you. My experience, anytime you delve deeply into a topic, and a topic of this kind of depth, where the ideas are profound, they're philosophies, they're things you can debate, but it's at a very high level because you're trying to explore and make sense of life. I just want you to know that every time we gather as a group, even if it's just two of us, and we have these kinds of conversations, we affect we have an impact on ourselves and everything else around us, because when we have these kinds of discussions, we evolve a little bit, we change a little bit, we expand a little bit. Some of the things that some of you talked about, Duncan, like your mind expands. And that's what we want to do, and that can bring us closer and closer to that evolution. So that's also why this topic is so valuable, and probably why all of you feel a call to discuss it and dig in. So I wanted just to share that. So we can, I'm going to leave it open. You guys can say what you want. I have notes that I can take you through, so that we can go through the different topics. And maybe I'll start with that because we were reading the first 53 pages. Some of you have read them. Some of you have ideas, but you read it maybe a few days ago or a few hours ago. You don't have it right in front of you. But I'm going to just ask, there's two opportunities. I can give you a framework, or if there's impending questions you want to delve into right away, we can go to those questions. So it's whatever you guys want. Would you like me to give you a framework first, or is there questions you want
I would.
Mm.
to?
Yes, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Alessandra.
Okay, so one of the things about the book that is it can be difficult to digest because there's a lot of material, and sometimes the material doesn't follow chronologically. It's not step by step. So sometimes I've heard from other groups, they can get lost in the information. So what I did was I made notes, and I was going to share them with you, but then I decided against it because I thought I wanted to leave a very organic experience for you without too much direction. But in my notes, what I can set up so that we have a context to have a discussion is these 53 pages go through the myth of the mirror. Then we have cosmogenesis. Am I pronouncing it right? Cosmogenesis, yes. Which is a discussion on the...
Cosmogenesis.
Cosmogenesis. The emphasis was on the wrong. So cosmogenesis, which is the origin of evolution in the universe. Okay, that was the second sort of chapter, and that was quite lengthy. And I think, was it just the two of them? Yeah. So it was the two chapters because the next one we didn't go through. So those are the two main umbrellas. You have the myth, and you have this cosmogenesis. And the myth is important because we're talking about a science. we've got spirituality, but it's spiritual physics. It's the science of spirituality. So, like all good sciences, you need assumptions. You need a container to hold these ideas you're going to measure and explore. You guys okay with that? Yeah? And then the cosmogenesis, cosmogenesis is, now that we have this philosophy or we have these assumptions that are different than the assumptions that we see out there in the regular physics to some degree, what are now, what does that landscape look like? What does the origin of the universe now look like? Because we have a new starting point. Do you understand? Is that useful?
Useful.
Yes.
Useful. Okay. So maybe we start by breaking the topic up in that way. So the first thing we have to talk about is this myth of the mirror. So I'm going to ask you guys, when you heard about 9 different primordial divinities, they're coming in to have this experience in matter. Any thoughts, any questions? Anything come up for you? Like, do you want me? Yeah, I want to just leave it open a little bit, because I could go on and on and on.
I would like to share my experience trying to discuss that section with a couple of people here, because we've met like 2 or 3 times now. But I think that this is particularly challenging topic to start this book. So in a way, it really, like, I feel like it throws you in the deepest part of the pool without knowing how to swim, and then if you like somehow make it, then from there on the swimming is really easy. But this idea about 9 primeval divinities that are beyond the concept that we have of God and that they talk in divinity is really very challenging. So anyway, I found that this is one of the most difficult parts. So I almost have thought that if I'm to do this, if I'm to do discussion of this book again in the future with maybe other people, I might not go chronologically in the book, but actually pick different subjects, because this is a very challenging one.
Okay, so do you?
I should say, I don't know of anybody else besides you, Alessandra. I've taken the spiritual physics courses from the Mystery School of Damanhur, which is like, each class, there are 3 levels, and each level is 2 days. So I had 6 days of explanation of the book by one of the main teachers from Damanhur. So it's my experience also with those classes is that people really get very confused, and I think even beyond confused, it's just really it's like such a high level, abstract level, beyond, like I said, even our concepts of gods that we have in our society is particularly challenging. So it's very hard to start with this, but if people can just kind of take this and just bear with it, I think that it helps with understanding the material later on. So anyway, that's what I want to say. Very, very challenging in a way.
That, it is a good point, and that's why I wanted to, and maybe I should make this clear, and this is the book, so for those, this is the Spiritual Physics. It's by Coyote Cardo, and this book is the foundation of the Damanhur spiritual community. And this information comes from a man who incarnated, and you have to believe in this concept, with his memory intact. So he remembered Egypt, he remembered Machu Picchu, he remembered all these lives. And so he had really a deep understanding of life and maybe what was going on here, and access to information that maybe not many of us have. So, and what is discussed in this book is also, this is a philosophy, and these are ideas. If they're true or not, that's for you to feel inside. what I want you really all to feel is that having this discussion will open doors inside of you, and not to get attached, but this is the assumptions of any good science, and the assumption is this idea that we start with. And like Vesla said, let's hold them as an assumption. They might not be true, but they're the assumption of which this philosophy is based on. And if we want to understand this philosophy, we have to work with these assumptions. Doesn't mean they have to be our truth, but we have to build using that construct.
Right.
So should we? Did you guys want to share a little bit about your thoughts and ideas of when you heard about these 9 divinities that live in the real and they have to come into matter? What did you, and the mirror has to break, like what did you think when you were reading this stuff? Like were you resisting? Did it make sense? Like, do you want to share a little bit? I'll leave it open.
I can say, when I started, and it's something just struck me when I saw a mirror and then shattering, and it all each part of the mirror had its full strength as the whole mirror. And I said the word soul, but I meant consciousness, you coming back in. That's what struck me. And then it made it easier to read the book, because I have not been to Damanhur. And the book is confusing. That's another reason why I'm very excited and grateful you're doing this, to explain these concepts. And that made sense to me. Even more interesting is, you said who wrote the book came back with his memory, but they speak about if the power of 100 is the mirror itself, or the fragment of mirror, you come back starting at 1. And that resonated with me. I didn't understand all the other different, and I'm not even going to attempt to try to remember, but when I read that made sense to me, because I do feel like people have shown throughout history that there are people that can automatically connect, right?
Yeah.
And connect easier, and through practice you can start to reconnect. And sometimes, like we said in the beginning when everybody's introducing and why this means so much to them, when you read something and you hear truth, even if you don't fully understand it, you hear truth, or something that somehow resonates so powerfully that you believe it to be true, right?
Yeah.
That's what I got, but I don't.
So
Don't even. That's what your notes are for. That's what you're here for.
I get
That's why I'm here. I don't understand the rest of it. I didn't.
But hold that, because that's an element maybe we can weave. It's an important, because there's a description when they're talking about the mirror of, this divinity. There's 9 of them, and there's these 9 divinities are all hanging out in the real. And this is the assumption we make, and this is what Vesla was alluding to. This is hard for a lot of people, like, where does this come from? But put everything aside that you heard before, and just have this as a framework of this physics you are going to play with. And in this physics, the context is, we've got this real, which is the absolute, and in this absolute, there's an ecosystem, and in this ecosystem you've got these 9, they call them primordial divinities, floating around. And they're all doing their things, and there's also other things going on in there. But what happens in this experience, and what this book is attempting to explain, is what happens when one of these divinities of the 9 comes into matter to have an experience. And that's what this book is about. This book is about one of these divinities coming here and having an experience. And this is the spiritual physics that we are studying. So are you guys okay with that concept? Are you? I know you've all been to Damanhur. You're okay with that, or do you want to have some input on that? Anything you want to add to that? Or even if it disturbed you when you read it, like any of that, because was there a resistance when you read it? I would love to hear. Or you can give me a thumbs up if you're good. Okay, Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah. Up to page 30, which was very difficult, but I worked through that. Up to page 30, everything was cool. I basically rewrote almost everything in notes just to be sure, but it all made sense. But the one thing I got out of those first 25 or 30 pages was, the religions here, where they came from, and it all makes sense. Everything makes sense. And when you talk about, I can't remember if this was later or before, but when they say each of those divinities has the same weight, they're all equal. That also makes sense. There's no hierarchy. They all work together, which is the way that we're coming to understand how we're all connected. It just all seems to join together, and I thought this is really good. So it just makes me, I'm going to be asking for a lot of confirmation is, did I understand this correctly? So one of the things was, from what it says here, about there are self-generated divinities, which are from the real, and then there are man-made divinities, which are from divinities that have had the divine spark activated within them in the material world. It is those divinities that actually made Jesus Christ and Buddha and Gandhi and whoever you want to call has been a prophet. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's a good question. And Vesla, you've taken all these courses as well. You can add to that. My understanding is, and you bring up a good point, and I don't know if we should. Okay, let's touch it. So, these Buddha, God, these were like me and you, like all of us, blood and skin. They were here. So that's a different level. Doesn't mean they were not enlightened beings and probably closer to the divine source. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, there's two divinities that are very important for you guys to understand. We're talking about the 9 primordial divinities that are in the real. Those are the 9. Those are the divinities. Then they talk about divinity that are a technology. They're man-made. And those would be all the gods that we aspire to. Oh my gosh, so many gods. From all the different traditions. Horus,
Aztec, Pan,
Krishna,
Apollo,
Ganesh. Those are all gods that people have created, and there's a reason for that. And these gods, we look at them as religions, today. But I'm going to offer you, under these new, assumptions of this new science we're going to study, that we're not going to look at them, their divinities, but their technologies. They have been created for a very specific purpose. So they're not the divine, the 9 primordial divinities that came in to have an experience. They are a technology created by man to help man contain information. And we've just lost that. Is that Elizabeth has got big eyes and she's looking at me.
It makes sense, but keep going.
Keep going.
Keep preaching. Okay.
So these divinities, Duncan, were created because at one point we realized that we are this divine, we have this divine source inside, but we also realized that maybe one lifetime was not going to be enough for us to attain that divine enlightenment, to reconnect, or to become enlightened. And so what we did is we used these divinities as containers of information of the knowledge. And so that's, I'm gonna have to ask you, unfortunately, there's no proof of that, but what is written in the pages. But in order...
When they say, or the author, or the memories that are in there, he kind of pulls it together very, very well, where he says, the purpose of these divinities and all of us, or all the people that have their divine spark enlightened, is to reassemble the pieces of the mirror so that the memories can be recalled.
Yes.
That's all we need. That's
Yes.
why I said I got it, because that's it.
No, no.
You know,
we're-
it's not going to happen tomorrow, I understand, but on that path, I get it, absolutely.
But we're gonna throw a couple of wrenches in there because we've got time and time matrices and time castles. I mean, it's nice to have the simplified version, but we're gonna stir that up.
Oh no, then there's page 30. That just threw me for a loop. Page 30 and 31. Can I just tell me if you don't want to do this? I can understand.
No,
but
go ahead. Go ahead.
I did a diagram because I just couldn't. I was writing and I go, this is all over the place. It's like first there was this and then there was this and then, but oh no, this helps that turn into this, and it was all over the place.
That's
so
why.
I drew like
That's
about
why I wrote.
5 different diagrams till I got one that I think is right.
Okay, let's see it.
Can
and
I
you
share it with you guys?
Yes.
It's not really.
Can you see it?
I mean,
Okay, wait.
anyway.
I can see it.
Okay.
Let me just. I gotta have to do some finagling here because I have 2 screens. I gotta make it one. But
Okay.
bear with me a second.
I mean, this is what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted to.
So, Alessandra, while Duncan is doing that, could you talk about, if I understood correctly from the book, it said that there are 9 divinities,
Yes.
3 of them failed, and now we're with the 4th divinity.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
And it has happened, what was it, 32,000 years ago or something
30
like that?
million
So
years ago.
Right, some huge number like that. So it's taking a long time for this divinity to get us to get this right. Is that
Well,
wise?
yes, you understood correctly, and I don't know if all of you. Yeah. So yes, there's these 9 divinities that are hanging out in the absolute real, and for whatever reason they decide that, hey, we're going to grow and expand, and hanging out here in bliss or in our space is maybe not the best way to challenge ourselves, and they decide to come and have this experience in the world of matter. And the real sets out some rules and says, okay, you guys can go and have this experience, but there's some rules. And the reason they want to come and have this experience is because they want to expand. They want, if we just stay comfortably in our couch at home, it's great, we're comfortable, but we're not really growing. So they decided to go out in the storm, one at a time, and certain rules were placed on them to have to come and play this game. And so 3 divinities have come before ours, which we are a part of. We're called the human primordial divinity. We're the 4th one to come. And it's been already 30 million years that we have been here trying to... The objective of this experience into the matter, and this is maybe I should talk a little bit about the mirror, is so this divinity comes and enters, and the metaphor that was used is each divinity is like a mirror, and when it comes into the matter, because matter is so different, it can't absorb all of it as a whole. As it enters, it fragments, and so that's why the mirror that shatters. And then in this place of matter and time that the divinity has entered, the rules are very different. And now this divinity that is, is very conscious and aware of itself when it's all together in the real, when it enters matter and it's all this, millions of little pieces, it forgets itself. It forgets its reason why it's here. And it's here to reassemble the mirror and reflect itself back to itself so that it spiritualizes matter, which is something we hear in a lot of esoteric teachings and religious idea. Also the idea that we each have inside of us a part of the divine. We have each of us a piece of the mirror. We're a fractal of the whole. This is also something we hear a lot. As above, so below. So these concepts are important, And Elizabeth, we are the fourth, the human primordial divinity. Like the other three, we have an allotted amount of time to succeed at this spiritualization of the matter. And if we don't, then we go back and the next one comes and has 30 million plus years. And then,
So would Atlantis have been one of them?
yes, and when you said where we are at today, I want to add that maybe today where we are at might not be the most evolved we have been on this planet. And if ancient sites and ancient civilizations, with just their construction that we cannot understand how it's made, are any indication, we were probably more evolved in other parts of our history than we are right now.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
Yeah, Elizabeth asked if Atlantis was one of them. Did you mean one of the divinities?
Yes.
Yeah, no, Atlantis is part of the humankind divinity. The humankind divinity has been around for at least 30 million years. So Atlantis is one of the civilizations of the humankind.
That was
divinity.
us.
Just something interesting, it's not said in the book, but it was said in one of the classes that I took, which gave me a really interesting perspective, is that the third divinity was the divinity of the dinosaurs. So it was the third divinity that was not successful was the dinosaurs, which we all know what happened with them. They went extinct. So just want to kind of add that to give a little bit of a perspective.
Yeah.
So where were the first two?
Civilizations are all part of that humankind divinity.
So the dinosaurs were not part of the humankind divinity.
No, they were
Part of
the
a previous divinity.
previous divinity, the third one.
Okay.
So do we know what the other two were?
No, I don't. I'm really curious, but
No.
when he asks those questions of the teacher, he says that's not important.
Listen, I do want to share with you something, and if one of you wants to do this, it would be awesome. This time when I went to Damanhur, I sat with Coyote, the author of the book, and I had many questions from the previous group, and he answered all the questions. So the questions we cannot answer, we can put to him, and maybe on one call he can join us.
Ask who the first two divinities were.
I think it's my understanding is okay. This book is just the tip. It's very in depth, but it is really the tip of the iceberg. All
Yeah.
the knowledge that is so dense. And I think we have to have a grasp of this before we really go into things that disintegrate our neurons.
Did Duncan have a thing?
Oh, Duncan, are you ready to share with us?
Yeah, I'm ready. Just one quick question
Okay,
before.
Elizabeth, did we
because it
answer
may
your
be-
question? Wait, Elizabeth, did we
Yes,
answer?
thank you. Yes,
Was
thank
good?
you.
Was good. Is
Yes.
everybody okay? Cindy, you're good?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're good?
I'm good.
You good? Okay. Okay. Everybody, we're following the ship. Everybody's going off Eva, you're good over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. See, you don't have to read the book. We're giving you the cold notes versions here.
So my question is, because it was mentioned a couple of times, the primordial divinity, when it descended into the universe of matter, it's impossible to ascertain when that happened. Yet the book says it was 30 million years ago. How do we know that, if it's impossible to ascertain?
I think we have to go, my understanding from some of the discussions I had, these are guidelines. These are guidelines, but we know.
That's what I figured.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a long time. And I'm going to share something also with you, and Vesla, you maybe can vouch for this. We're getting to the end of our timeline. Like, we're getting to the end. Like, we don't have we only have so much time to do this job, and if we don't succeed, we all go bye-bye.
I'm so happy about
No, it's not a happy thing, but we do, we have a certain amount of time, then it's another turn, and it might be another kind of dinosaurs. So we want to we got to rock this place so we can get this
Okay.
done.
So this page 30 and 31, this is my diagram of trying to make sense of all the things that are discussed there.
Okay.
And it's just specifically drilling down regarding how matter is created, nothing more. It's
Okay.
not a
Okay,
big
so
picture thing, it's just that concept on those 2 pages.
So
okay?
then I'm going to get you to hold that, and I'm just going to, I just want to take everybody through what we've talked about. So Vesla made a really good point. You know, this idea of religion is not aligned at all with these 9 divinities, the real, the mirror coming. Those, we agree, are the assumptions of which we're going to study this book. Okay, that's just part 1. I just want to set it up, Duncan, so that what you're going to take us to follows. I don't want to miss some of the other things that we need to build on. So we got the myth of the mirror, everybody, that's an assumption. Real, not real, doesn't matter. It gives a framework for studying this material. Divinity, there's the primordial divinities, the 9, and then there's this divinity, which is more related to what we know of the religions of the world, which is not really a religion, but a technology used by us to hold and contain information. Now, maybe before I get to yours, we have to talk about the human soul before we talk about matter, because okay, so I'm just going to introduce the human soul, and then we'll go to Duncan's piece. Or you know what? No, you know what, Duncan? You're right. That we're going to just go along with how matter is created. So we have the framework. You guys are good? We've got the real, the container, divinities.
Alessandra,
Yes.
can I read a paragraph from the, let's see, it's page 23. It's
Okay.
Regarding the difference or what those human-made divinities are as opposed to the primeval divinities,
Okay.
because I think it's so beautiful and it actually touches on the soul. So
Okay.
we go
Beautiful.
to the matter.
So
I
Duncan,
guess
just
matter
so
and
that-
soul, I'm more interested in the soul, but this is a beautiful paragraph. So it's on page 23 is like, okay, it's let's say starting with paragraph 3. So consequently, the humankind began to search for some continuity of existence after death.
Wait.
As
Hold
well
on a
as
second.
possibility. Yeah.
Is everybody on it? I just want to make sure everybody's on. And Duncan, I'm only slowing you down so that everybody's comfortable with the building blocks. Are you guys okay doing it this way? Because we want to go deeper and deeper in these topics, and I want to make sure everybody we're building it. So, and yours will.
I was going to say that to have like 50 pages read and discussed in 2 hours I don't think is very realistic. So like it's we're an hour in and we're maybe covered maybe 10, 15 pages, but we'll have to find our own rhythm and pace as we go. I suggest that like people say, I have a question about page such and such, I have a question about page so, then we go chronologically, like if somebody has a question about a page that comes earlier, to go first to that before we get to some of the later pages. We know what people questions have. But I really want to read that because it's so beautiful, and it just is maybe for me, it's one of the highlights of that first chapter.
So is everybody there? Does everybody have the book? Yeah, we're good? Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
it ties in the divinity, man-made divinity with the soul.
Okay.
So consequently, the man, humankind, began to search for some continuity of existence after death, as well as the possibility of being reborn in order to continue towards the realization of his distant goals. To fulfill this need, it was necessary to find something that would be able to contain his essence, the memory of the dead, and that would also be able to direct their rebirth. This is how the idea of reincarnation was first conceived, as well as the reason why divinities were invented, to contain the souls of the dead and to preserve their memories. So motivated by this need, mankind began a process that continued for thousands of years to develop the necessary technology, which today we define as magic, in order to create and control a divinity. Therefore, a divinity is basically a container which necessitates direct, focused thought, even many centuries worth, in order to be created. This, for me, is the summary of the whole first chapter, and it's so beautiful, and it just yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And also I want to touch on this, and I think it will be Duncan then that can finish this topic. When this mirror breaks into all these pieces and it comes into the world of matter, it touches all of matter. Everything has a divine spark. The wood, the tree, everything. But what starts to become more and more evolved then can, and more complex, because a stone might not be as complex as a human, but it also contains a divine spark. It also contains this this cascade of information that's come from the divine, from the primordial divinity. It contains also a piece of the mirror. But that piece, that part in the matter that becomes more and more evolved, something happens to it as it becomes more evolved and more complex. It starts to host a divine spark that can host a soul. And so when this happened, what Vessela just shared with us is fundamental, because in that moment of realizing that, oh my gosh, I'm part of something so much bigger, but in one lifetime I might not be able to achieve that knowledge, it was important to create those containers of divinity. Just to add. Does that help?
Yeah.
Guys, does that help? Duncan? And then, Duncan, you can now lead in perfectly to how matter is created, so that we can
Okay,
take
so this is just say that I'm not reading anything into this. I'm just trying to understand those 2 pages, nothing more. Because you can go into details on each step, but I mean, so much of it after feeds back to this, But this is just focusing on these 2 pages. So if we can get a handle, or I can get a handle on that, but I just need a confirmation that I'm on the right path.
Okay.
Okay. So.
So we're going to see your screen.
Yeah.
Are you following this?
I'm following this.
Is it building?
Okay, so we start at going from the bottom to the top, and again, this is an assumption, just like the 9 primeval divinities. So the assumption is it all starts in the absolute of the real,
Right.
and this is where the idea of form comes from.
No. Okay, no, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, and then it goes to the new dimension, which is in the world of ideas, where we create a new dimension. That's called the world of ideas. That's what it says there.
Okay.
Okay, from there, it becomes a virtual idea without direction or time, and it has a negative density.
Yes.
Okay, so then that gets translated, going through the world of numbers, where there are certain parameters that get applied, and then that information is transferred to a demiurge, which is kind of like a catalyst, which assigns time and direction to the ideas, and then that goes to become in matter a material object, which now has a positive density. Now, with all the animals and plants and humans and whatever organic matter, they all have different perceptions of this material object, whatever it is. And it's these different perceptions that maintain the universe. So diversity is paramount to keeping the universe moving around, keeping everything happening and living. So it's the perceptions by all these different species, and then it says the object that is thought of equals the object in the world of ideas, which puts it back into a negative density. And it goes around and around and around.
That's how, so you have really simplified that topic. The only adjustment I would make is in the real, my understanding is that, and this could be a question for clarification, unless, Vesla, you have heard something different. in the real, this is not a necessary thing. This does not exist in the real. This is all the cascade happening when you enter the world of matter, which was nothingness before. You know, these divinities are in the real, they're having an experience up there, they're happy, they're doing their thing. And then some spark ignites and they said, okay, let's change it up and let's go have this experience. And they came in to, there was nothing here before, into the nothingness. So this experience, this world of ideas is not in the real. It starts to permeate the nothingness. It's the beginning of the creation of the material world. This is the only thing that I would add. So, and you touched on it beautifully, because the idea of form, and maybe this is a force that gets created by these fragments as they enter this nothingness, and then this whole process that you describe takes place. The ideas get attached to this. How did you describe it? It's just an idea, and then it gets a value, and a demiurge gets attached to it, which all of a sudden brings it out into matter. You know, at the beginning there's nothing. Yeah? There's really like probably dust particles that are being observed. But what's beautiful, and you touched on it, is the idea starts to create something in the material world. Then it gets observed by whatever is in the material world at that time. If it's not very evolved, that's okay. But it's observing this fluff. Let's say that's at the beginning stages, and then as it goes back into the world of ideas, because it was perceived, now it's got a little bit more density, comes back around with this demiurge, and there you go, and it continues. And you touched on something that we saw a lot in Damanhur, also in the depictions of the temple. Diversity is fundamental, because in order to create this world that we are living in, we need as many different forms perceiving it, sending it information, so that it can be created back in the system that Duncan so well explained. This carrier brings it back into the world of idea with more complexity, so it can continue to evolve. So that's why diversity is fundamental. It's not just
I kind of wrote that over here. Yeah, it's imperative for the maintenance of the universe. Diversity. That's a very powerful message for everybody.
So
when you're talking about, I just got to be careful, because we all know, if we've read ahead a little bit, when you talk about emptiness, that's an enemy.
Well,
and we don't want to confuse that with what you're trying to say here, I think. So I want to make sure that whatever I put in here, it's going to be easy to understand. Because once you read, into page 50, and you get into the enemy and the non-existence, which is nothing, it's an obstacle for things that aren't, don't have the divine spark enlightened, right? Because they have to follow the laws, and they run into these obstacles of nothing, and it slows them down in their progress. So I don't want to confuse that with what you're trying to say, and I'm just.
But Duncan, I also my understanding is there was nothingness here. The primordial divinity, when it came into matter, it occupied the matter. So the nothingness is a force, is an enemy. They sometimes call it. It's anti-life, because it's fighting, but just by its nature, without anybody doing anything, it is pushing back against evolution. It's almost like the space in a room. Like if you enter into the room, all of a sudden you're occupying that space. Well, that's the air in that room is going to push back against you. Say, like, hold on. So the nothingness is just, it has become something of they call it an enemy or a negative force, but in its essence, it just opposes anything that comes into it just by its nature. So even though it doesn't do anything in itself, it cannot, it pushes against us as we're trying. It's almost like pushing a boulder uphill. It's the uphill. The uphill doesn't have to do anything. But it is an opposing force.
Well said.
You
But
know?
could we say the absolute of the real we don't understand anyway, because it's outside our understanding?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe I could put that in there just as a clarifier.
Yeah, but I would just clarify that this world of the idea of form is not in the real. The real doesn't need any of that. It's really it's at the entrance of the material world that we are.
Okay.
That's the only thing that I would talk about. That was good. That was good.
Huh?
How about all the rest of you? Are you all like just lulled, or do you have some ideas or some questions that are popping up? Is it clear?
It's making everything clearer, yes.
I don't know if Elizabeth is being kind.
No, it is. I mean, you know what I love is that everyone has something to say. And I love the organic. Instead of notes, I love how you did this.
Yeah.
And so, it's getting, yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm
beautiful.
learning things that I read it. I didn't get it.
So now I'm going to just summarize it. So we put all the pieces together. So we have the myth of the mirror. We have divinity. I think we need to. What time is it? I'm not good at.
7:10.
Are you guys okay to go on a little bit more? Because this was dense. This was dense. I think I want to add some elements that I think might help create a little bit more the container of information. So I want to talk a little bit about the human soul, because as we go further into the book, there's much more. But I'm going to ask you guys, what did you understand of the human souls? I don't know if one of you wants to try. I guess we didn't really touch it. I'm going to give it a little bit more density. Vesla, the beautiful piece you read to us starts to touch it. But let me just see where we talk about the human soul, because I think it's important.
Soul Adam.
The human soul. Yeah, there wasn't much on it, but I think I want to just go a little bit further into this, because this is all part of the myth, right? So the human soul, how does the human soul sort of come into the world of matter? So we talked about the primordial, we are the fourth divinity, the human primordial divinity that is entering into the world of matter. And the myth of the mirror is, as it enters, it breaks off into millions of little pieces, and as it does that, it loses unfortunately, the reason why it's here. It loses the memory that it's here to expand and evolve, and it becomes fragmented. And this mirror permeates everything that's in the world of matter. It's in every aspect it's in everything that's in the world of matter. What starts to happen is some forms develop more and more and become more complex. And as these forms become more and more complex, they are able then to host what is also talked about under the myth of the mirror, the divine spark. And the divine spark is this awakening inside this form. And humans have this divine spark. Some other species on the planet have this divine spark. I think we talk about dolphins, we talk about whales, we talk about elephants. Elephants have traditions of their ancestors. We can see sometimes from the behavior of animals, the ones that can have a bigger, understanding that life is just beyond their own. They tend to have an understanding of much more, and that could be a clue. I think there's more and more forms now that we're discovering have this divine spark. And so in order to get that divine spark, you need this more complex and evolved species, if you want. And the human being is one of these. And we have now consciousness, once we reach this level of evolution, of being more than what we are. And that in itself allows us to wake up to this divine spark that is in us. And so now that we have this divine spark, this is where what we were talking about, the importance of creating containers to leave that information and the knowledge. And that's why these divinities were created, to help us as humans waking up to our divinity, realizing, okay, this is a valuable information. We've done experiences, and then of course knowledge and all of that started to be contained in the divinities. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then the next piece is what you talked about, Duncan, is the how the matter starts to be created. And okay, so how do we go to
Alessandra?
Yes.
I think that it would be important to mention the real threshold and the universe of form as three very important layers, and as pertains to the soul and the attractor. So I don't know if you plan to talk about this, but I think that's a very crucial aspect of this. Chapter.
No, absolutely. Yes, this is, the origin of the evolution of the universe with this new information. How do we set it up? So I'm just going to give you a little bit of my notes here, because go ahead. Unless Vesla, did you want to say something?
No. I was saying I want to hear the notes.
Okay. So in this cosmogenesis, there is 5 sort of subtopics, and we are trying to now explain the origin of this universe with these new assumptions we have made. So the first thing is how matter is created, and Duncan gave us a framework. Then we also have what are called primordial forces, laws. What are the laws that are governing this universe? So we're going to touch on those. We're going to talk about the nothingness and what is now called, in this chapter, the enemy. And then touch a little bit on the universe, and then the structure of matter in more of its physics pieces, in the form of physics. So when we talk about matter, we have to talk about what Duncan talked about. So we have an idea. The idea is in this world of idea. It gets carried by this demiurge, which is something that adds a numerical value, and then it gets perceived by forms and then back into the world of ideas and then back out again. The more forms, the more matter gets created. Now, as this is happening, there still is no time, okay? Because at the beginning process of this, there's not a lot of density yet in the world of matter. And then something starts to happen Um, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to follow the notes because this can get a little bit lost. Are you guys okay with this so far? You guys are good with the world ideas? Okay. Okay. So we have this matter, like Duncan was explaining. At the beginning, there's no time because there's just flow of these ideas. As soon as the matter becomes more dense, more shaped, more formed, all of a sudden, this element of time is brought in. It's unclear where it starts. There's some ideas, but it cannot be before there's enough density in the material world. Okay. And then all of a sudden, time, this movement forward starts to be created. And we're going to touch time. Time is actually a whole topic unto itself. So now we've got matter starting to be created, a direction in time that's starting because there's more volume to the matter. And now matter is going to be at play with these 8, we call them derivative laws. So it's almost like the rules of the game that matter has to play in. And these are called derivative laws because they derive from laws or energies that were also in the real. But in the real, they looked a little bit different. So the real is an ecosystem in itself. There's an absolute force, there's these 9 divinities, and there's these primordial laws. This is all the assumptions of this physics that we are playing with. And are you guys following me?
I'm following.
You guys are good? Give me a thumbs up. You okay? Okay. Thumbs up. Okay. So what happens now that we have started to create, the real has come in, the mirror, we've got this nothingness that's being filled by the world of ideas, there's this matter, these blobs that start become form, and all of a sudden when there's a bit of form, poof, you've got time, you've got a movement forward, and you have a new element coming into the world of matter, okay? And now, these derivative laws can come into play. So if you're going to play a game and this divine human divinity is here to expand, and we are here to spiritualize and evolve, what are the rules of engagement? And the rules of engagement are defined by these 9 derivative laws. And we're going to go through them. Did you guys, okay, so the first one was, do you guys remember reading this?
Yeah.
Yes, did you okay, so the first, I'll just go through them and then we can stop me. The first one is, first, maybe I'll name them and then we'll talk about each of them individually, because I have to tell you, the first time I heard about these laws, I was in the temple and there was a beautiful picture of, I think it's in the Hall of the Earth, where there's a man and he has these 9 stars that live, 9 stars, 8 stars that leave his hand. And I asked, what do these beautiful stars represent? And those are the 8 laws. And I said, well, give me the name of these laws. Like, what are they? So just to, if the assumptions we made before about the real and 9 primordial divinities, and now these laws that hang around, energies. Okay, it's another word for energies, these laws. And now I'm going to give you these laws that are now also permeating matter, so that we have the rules of the game. And the laws are synchronicity, soul atom, divinity, geometric essence, time matrix, fall of neutral events, chaos and complexity. So if you didn't think I was nuts before, you probably think I'm nuts now. Okay. Have you ever heard of anything? I mean, I've heard of the 10 Commandments. Nothing came close to anything like this. I mean, this looks like kind of something from Star Wars.
Synchronicity, that's Deepak, right?
Did you say chaos?
Yes.
And the chaos was
And
in,
the chaos, yes.
Dr. Yeah.
Which one?
Oh gosh.
These are things we've heard in different,
Yeah.
spiritual contexts and also religious contexts. So, in order to give now this matter that's evolving, with this sort of mechanism that Duncan explained to us, let's add these laws inside to see what the rules of the games are. So the fall of neutral event, let's start with synchronicity.
The fall of neutral events comes first in the book.
The fall of neutral events. Okay. So the fall of neutral events, what is that? So it's one of the laws. Okay. So I'm just going to give you my notes. The fall of neutral. This is page 33, you guys. I'm just going to simplify it. This is raindrops of energy. They're neutral, that have the potential to become physical events. They become physical events when they touch form and then they change it. And this fall of neutral events also helps to create the fabric of time. The neutral event, as they fall, are affected by divine forces that give them a resonance. So the best way to describe this is, these 8 laws that are here in matter are forces that are going to shape and help shape matter in the world of in this new movement of time. Okay, they're like the things we're going to hit against in order to shape, like the coal that hits the itself around so it can become a diamond, right? It needs these forces. So these laws are like these forces. Each of these laws have the same value. One is not better than the other. They're all as important, and they all work together. My understanding is they are each as important as the other. And we are just going to touch them, and then later on in the book we're going to develop them a little bit more as well. So the fall of the neutral event, this is a law. This is raindrops of energy that are coming from, into matter, and they have an impact on everything they touch, from the stone to the person to the animal, and the divine, yes. So let's just keep it as that. I think I have to mention just something, part of the myth of the mirror and the divinity that comes in to have this experience in matter. Not only do we have an allotted amount of time, and the human primordial divinity has been doing this for 30 million years, but we also have rules of engagement. So when we are here, it's one divinity at a time. We cannot be rescued by the dinosaur divinity, we cannot. It's one at a time that is here playing this game. So it's important that we know, and also this is important, and I want you to, because it's also in the book, it's an important concept before we move on. I'm sorry to jump around, but I wanted to give you this picture. Do you guys remember on page 16, I'm just going to regress a little bit, where you have this picture of the real, the human primordial divinity, and these are, the other 9 divinities, and then we're split into all these little humans in the universe of form. That the human primordial divinity is whole in the real, but it's broken up in this plane. So, it cannot help us. Once we've entered it observes us, but it cannot interfere. That's one of the games.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
That was one. So we can't interfere. So I just wanted to say all of that because,
If I understood, it couldn't interfere, but it finds, like, if this and this should happen, then this, they might give you a little tidbit, or they
Yes,
might help out. Yeah.
They might have, because in the fall of neutral event, one of the things that was mentioned is that when this raindrop of energy comes down and touches matter, they can be affected by divine forces as well. So I just want, that's why these neutral events might, yes, Duncan.
Yeah, the one thing that it also said, and I think it goes to what you're saying, is that, yeah, it's the divine forces that affect these, because until that point, they're all equal. So one of those drops could set off solar flares, and another one could make an ant take a step.
Yeah.
But it all depends on what filters it passes through before it gets there, and it assigns a color to it, which changes the power that it has.
Right. Oh, so wait, and let's discuss this. I'm just gonna ask to clarify it. So are we talking about the divine forces of the real? No, we're talking about the divine forces we have created as the technology, right? We're talking about the gods and the religions we've created. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, then we're on the same page, yes. Then the second law is...
Can I bring up something about the 12 neutral events?
Yes.
So this is on page 34. It says that the flow of neutral events is calculable, and they are formulae that allow for the determination of the quantity of events that flow in any given instant at a specific physical space. In any case, the rain is not uniform, but distributed with different densities, especially in relation to the presence of synchronic lines. And so we haven't discussed synchronic lines, but for those of you who've been in Damanhur, I assume that you at some point heard that the temple is built on in a special place where there's those synchronic lines that cross, and those synchronic lines carry information from other planets and from outer space, from the rest of the universe through the Earth and out of the Earth. So they're really powerful information channel. So where Damanhur and the temple is built is a place where 4 synchronic lines cross. So basically there is a lot more neutral events falling in places where there's synchronic lines. So because of that, Damanhur is particularly powerful, rich place of those kinds of neutral events that give the potential of a lot more evolution to happen there versus places where there is not synchronic lines and therefore not as many neutral events falling. So I find that very, when I was in Damanhur, I really felt that there is so much potential there that you can feel that is not the same as in other places. So that's one of the things that I think explains or, just kind of highlights the specialness of the place where Damanhur is built.
And also, Vesla, the importance for us to be in places like that.
Yeah. I read somewhere, I don't know if I read it, but I was asking Krotolo, one of the teachers, but he laughed. But I believe I read somewhere, or somebody told me that one day in Damanhur is equal 100 days. So the intensity of the information, the evolution that happens in one day, there is equal. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I want to say 100, but anyway, it's the time there flows differently, and it's a lot more intense, a lot more filled with for lack of better words, with evolution, or at least opportunities for evolution. It's just very, for me, it was really kind of something that I felt strongly while I was there.
Well, and Vesla, this is also a lot of the ancient sites around the planet that people go to, Egypt, Machu Picchu. People feel a potent energy there, and then some people have emotional experiences, and this explains that. Why would that be? Because in these areas where these synchronic lines are, which is another topic we'll talk about, there's more of these neutral events, which are energy. There's greater density of energy, so more potential for things to happen. Then another one of the laws, and that's on page 36, synchronicity. And synchronicity is interesting. And I'm going to just read this. Synchronicity is a force that creates a link between all events, simultaneously as well as along a timeline. So it's like the butterfly effect. One event can move others to happen. And it doesn't have to necessarily be linear. Synchronicity doesn't mean that it has to follow 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. No. Synchronicity can be by correspondence. This happens over here, and boom, something else over there happens. So synchronicity is not necessarily linear, one by one by one. It can be by correspondence.
It's not. It's the important thing is to realize it's not cause and effect. We tend to think of this cause that, but from a bigger perspective of the spiritual physics, there is no cause and effect. Things are connected synchronistically. So you cannot say which is the cause and which is the effect. That's very linear, simplified way.
And I'm just going to add that, because when we delve deeper into this book, we're going to talk about time and time travel, and being able to travel in time is possible when you understand this construct. And so sometimes if you want to move an event, all you have to do is take a pen and move it 2 inches, and all of a sudden you have changed history in a completely different direction. So this is this correspondence effect. It's not cause and effect. It's the way things are connected to each other.
I like the example that they give about the man who needs shoes, and he's walking on the street, and there is a truck or van that passes by, and is what it would choose, and a box of shoes falls out, and it just happens to be the exact size that the man wears. Obviously, the man didn't cause the van to go by into. So it's all synchronistically in a higher level of connection. Intelligent force maybe connect that man with to be in the right place at the right time. So, but there is no cause and effect here. So it's synchronicity, which is
Also a really good album by the Police.
A good album by the Police.
It's called Synchronicity?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know. Did you guys, by any chance, any of you buy the Synchronicity shield from Damanhur?
Oh, yes, I have
the
it.
Selfic, they sell a Selfic
shield.
I guess jewelry, because you can wear it like a medallion that is supposed to attract synchronicities for the person. They activate it based on your date of birth and so on. So that's one thing that I bought when I first went to Damanhur, and I just don't take it off at all. I mean, it's just and I feel like my life ever since I visited Damanhur has been amazingly, a lot more synchronicities have come in my life. So if you haven't bought this, I recommend it.
Vesela, were you able to wear it at the temple?
No.
Were you able to wear it? Because when we were there, we were told that we shouldn't wear it because it removes the energies from it. One of the teachers from the...
And I actually went the second time this year to Damanhur and didn't wear it there. There's certain spirals, you probably have seen some of the spirals they have there. For some of the spirals, they ask you to, if there is a special function, but not in the temple. So I don't know if there was something that, like there was something special that was going on, and they had some special kind of a goal for what you were doing. But generally, I'm not aware of that. I've worn, but I just want to say I recommend this because it just feels very powerful.
I like it. I like it.
Can you show us? Can you show us what it looks like?
Can we see it?
Do you have it on?
I don't know how much.
Oh, yes, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we follow neutral event, synchronicity, and now the soul atom. This one is really interesting. And that, idea of, really control your thoughts because it has an impact. The soul atom I'll give you these little notes. That's on page 39. The soul atom, soul means one. One atom travels through the whole universe at infinite speed, zero time. It creates matter according to the laws, and because it is so fast, it doesn't create the full form, but a symmetry of the form. And this line defines the relationship between mass and energy. So anyways, we can dwell in more depth about this, but the important thing is think of the fact that through you and every cell of you, every second at zero time, there is something that is touching you, that is touching me, that is touching all of you. Always. Constantly. So be really good what you put out there. So that's another one of the laws. And this soul atom that moves so quickly is just, it's not creating the whole form, it's creating an energy line. And it's an energy line where it is dividing or it's defining the relationship of everything between its energy and its mass, okay? We can delve deeper into it, but for now, let's just put a general landscape on the words, on the law. So we have an idea that we've got the soul atom that's moving through everything. Divinity. So divinity in this, as far as the law is concerned, so in this case, it's a law. It's not an intelligent form like the divinities we talked about that we constructed like religious, containers of information. This is the law of divinity, and this law is what governs how this primordial divinity comes and has an experience in matter. So that's all that was taught, that was really mentioned about this particular law. It's what allows the primordial human divinity to enter matter by the myth of the mirror, by the breaking of the mirror. So it's just a general term. We'll go deeper into some of these topics, of these laws, as they affect different things that we will be talking deeper, further along in the book. So that's divinity is the fourth law. Then we have the time matrix. The time matrix is concerning, this one is on page, I think it's page 43?
42.
42. Okay, so the time matrix has the function to maintain balance in form by managing the values of mass and energy at every instance. The universe is a closed system. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. The value of the universe must stay constant at a value of 1, by example. The time matrix law maintains this. So as time is being created, it's imprinting matter. And for now, just know that, because when we go deeper into the topic of time as a plane, we'll explore this a little bit more. So time is not what you think of as a movement forward of events, but time moves forward naturally because of this fact that it is constantly an exchange between mass and energy, and it creates density and movement forward just because it's accumulating things as it's going in a direction, okay? And there's a lot of topics related to this, but we're just going to move past them just because we want to stay with the framework of the rules of engagement of this experience in matter that form is going to have. Now this is the sixth law, it's the geometric essence, and
Alessandra?
yes.
Can I mention one part about that I find interesting about the time matrix law is on page 44, the last paragraph of that section.
Yes.
And it says that according to an approximate calculation, we can identify at least 20 variations per second within the mass-energy relationship. And because from the point of view of human perception, an instant has a duration of 4 seconds. We can say that the rhythm number is composed of not less than 80 symmetry lines, meaning that an instant, it's just in every second there's 80 possibility of different paths, so to speak, of evolution between the variations of the mass energy relationship and between those 4 seconds that are part of one instant. So I know it speaks something to me. I don't quite understand it, but the importance here is that from the perspective of human perception, a moment is lasts 4 seconds, and also that every moment or every second there's 20 variations of possible the mass energy. I find that very interesting.
Okay, well, you know what? You guys want to touch it a little bit more, or how are you doing for time? Am I losing you guys?
No,
Are you guys okay?
It looks like we have 15 minutes before they cut you off.
What time is it?
8:45.
It's a
Quarter
quarter to 9. Oh, mamma mia. So listen, we're not gonna. Why don't we?
Stop here.
Okay. You know what? Vesla, thank you for that. I think we probably have to review these laws a little bit more. But okay, let's just. Are you guys okay with that? I mean, I feel terrible not going more into depth about it because I think it's an important topic.
That's why I'm wondering if we need to hurry through all those pages that we have read. If we have more questions. I mean, I don't know that if there is any particular rush to get through all the pages that we've read.
No. I think what you talked about the time matrix. I think this topic is interesting. So we're talking page 44. Maybe we read it together. What we see is that the variation in the mass energy are not okay. The variation in the mass energy relationship are not casual, but follow a precise rhythm that is repeated at every instant. This repeated rhythm is the rhythmic number, a code that identifies each form and which is composed of a certain number of symmetry lines. Okay, so each form has a certain number of symmetry lines. That means that we have symmetry lines. Okay? And according to an approximate calculation, we can identify at least 20 variations per second within the mass-energy relationship. And because, from the point of view of human perception, an instant has a duration of 4 seconds, we can say that a rhythmic number is composed of not less than 80 symmetry lines. Okay, I think this is... I think this is... Duncan, do you want to do a diagram for this for next time?
No, Duncan, I loved your diagram. That was really helpful.
Because, no, I think, Vesla, you're right. I think this is really... All of these have so much weight to them. But when we look at these and we just read them like this, it seems like a lot of things to hold in our mind. But I think if we break it down into smaller parts and we realize that, hey, this is why we're made up in the way we're made up, and that's why we move.
And it's like I was reading through, and I was thinking the same thing when I was reading that page. I said, like with kids' books, you have a guy that writes the book and you have the illustrator. They need an illustrator for this thing.
Yeah.
There are 2 or 3, but there should be one with every couple of pages. Because it's...
Okay.
Anyway, that's fine. Not judging. It's just an observation.
I'm gonna come up with an idea. You know what? I think we're gonna do this. Okay, guys, let's forget about having an objective of getting through this. There's 6 of us on the call. There's 7. Gail wants to come on. Why? I will take 2 laws
and explain them more in depth, and each of you take one law and explain it next time. So it's not, what do you guys think of that? Because I think they're important, or no, I think it will, I think it will break it up a little bit so we can all delve into one of the laws for next time. And then we'll just continue on to, page 52.
The only one that, in reading through them, because it also says that all those laws are absolutely equal. So I did another breakdown of that where I just gave everything 12.5% because it was 100 divided by 8, right? But they all have equal signs between them. But when you explain the law of divinity, it's pretty simple. All the other ones are a little more complex, but that one, I don't think it needs a diagram. It's not
Okay,
that
so maybe
complex.
some of them are a little bit more simple. No, but
Even if they're all have the same weight as far as the real is concerned, I guess.
well, I think
The material world is concerned. Sorry.
I think what we're going to see is as we go deeper into the book, these laws are going to play bigger parts.
Yeah.
And we'll go more into depth.
We really need to understand.
I think we need to understand them. Do you guys want to play with that? I'll send you all an email and we can, or maybe we'll break them up now. Vesla, I'm going to point you to the fall of neutral events.
Sounds good. I already.
You have that one. I want to take synchronicity. I want me. Or does somebody else want synchronicity? No, okay, me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Which one? Oh no, you know what? I know I'm going to give synchronicity to somebody else. I'm going to take the time matrix or the soul atom because it's got that mass energy thing. Okay, synchronicity. Who wants it? Cindy, yours.
Okay, I got it.
Synchronicity is Cindy. Okay. Soul atom, I think. I'll take the soul atom or the time matrix. Okay, Duncan, which one do you want? Soul atom or time matrix?
Yeah, soul atom.
Okay, so Duncan is soul atom. I'll do the time matrix. Divinity, we don't need. And geometric exit. Geometric essence, complexity, or chaos? Which one do you want? Let's give you chaos.
You want,
No, you decide.
Alessandra?
That's my life.
Yes.
Let's give her chaos. You're already familiar with it.
She
Go
knows
on.
chaos. Well,
Alessandra,
Okay, Kaylin.
what?
I'm giving my fall of neutral events. If somebody wants it, I would like to, if nobody else particularly is interested, to talk about the complexity. I like the complexity law.
Vesela, complexity is yours. Okay.
Thank you.
I will do the fall of neutral events. I'll do that.
chaos.
Okay. Chaos, soul, Elizabeth. And now the geometric essence. We'll give that one to Gail. We can get Gail. Oh,
She's
Eva,
not there.
you're on the phone. Eva, do you want geometric essence?
No, I'd like to stay out of it for now
Stay
and
out,
just
okay.
listen. I'm not quite ready because I don't know if I'll find my book in time.
Okay.
I can do geometric essence too because it's short one. It precedes the complexity, so I don't mind talking about both.
Okay, so geometric essence. Okay, beautiful. Fantastic. Okay, guys, let's stop it there before I. That was. Did you guys? I mean, that was a lot. How you
Yeah,
guys?
I'm very impressed with this group. Your diagrams.
Bravi, bravi.
Yeah.
So, Alessandra, which one did you give me?
Oh, which one did you take?
Yeah, you
I
took
don't-
one.
I didn't get to pick one.
Oh, which one would you like, love?
I can't remember which one you took.
I didn't take any.
Do you want
Okay.
the geometric essence?
I'll take whatever is not taken.
So how about geometric essence then?
Geometric
That's the last
essence.
one.
Elizabeth. Spence.
Geometric essence.
Okay.
Sounds
Is that
good.
the last one on the list?
That was one of the last ones,
the
but we can give you
complexi-
divinity.
Complexity.
I am doing complexity.
Okay, so I'm doing the fall of neutral event. Cindy's doing synchronicity. Duncan is doing the soul atom. The divinity, we're going to leave it because it's quite straightforward. The time matrix, I wanted to do the time matrix too. So I'm going to do 2. I'll do the time matrix. Unless somebody else, no, I want to do the time matrix.
It's yours.
It's mine.
It's
I'm
yours.
gonna have 2. Elizabeth, you're gonna do geometric essence. Besla, you got complexity,
Yeah.
and Elizabeth, chaos. So the next time we start, we will each do a presentation on the laws. And do you guys feel comfortable that you've got a grasp on the myth of the mirror, how possibly the soul is coming into the form, how matter is created? Do we have a little bit of a sense?
Yeah, it cleared up some things, and so then I'm just going to reread these pages with that, because that's what helps, is when you have an idea, and then your mind starts looking for the support of those ideas,
Okay,
right?
Good.
At least mine does.
Good.
Everyone does.
beautiful. Okay, I like that. Well said, Elizabeth. I think this is, if we go back and reread these things. So, Eva, you probably benefited from not reading it before because you can go back.
Well, it was very interesting listening to it all. I mean, I'm following okay, but I will have to read it.
No, beautiful. Okay, so then next time, we don't, I mean, for those that want to go ahead, keep going ahead, but let's leave it to maybe if we have another, we can do the time. The timepiece is pretty dense.
Yes.
How long is it?
Time is
It's a
63
lot.
to 97, but it's dense. There's a lot.
Very, very dense.
So, guys, do you want to meet one more time before the Christmas holidays? You want to do another 2 weeks from now, or no? we
January?
It will be hard to do another
Okay.
December.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to
Sometime
send
in
out
January.
Yeah.
January. Okay, I got it. I'm going to send you guys a date, probably the week of the 12th, 13th, or maybe Thursday, Friday of that first week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll check with you and we'll see. Oh, Wednesdays. Wednesdays are good for Elizabeth.
Thursdays I can never do.
No, Wednesdays.
'Cause I'm-
Wednesdays.
I'm
Are-
booked
are-
up till 9:30.
Is everybody okay with Wednesdays to meet? Elizabeth?
At the same time,
Yeah, same time
that,
works.
7 o'clock your time.
Yeah. So if I keep Wednesdays and we'll just find a date in Wednesday.
What times on Thursdays work
Yeah,
for you?
sounds good.
7 to 9?
Yeah.
7
Is
to
it
9.
going to be on YouTube also, or just today?
No. Well, I'm going to get you the link. I'm going to get you the link.
No,
so-
but I mean, like the next time, are you going to be on YouTube also?
No, we'll just
No.
do it through Zoom.
No,
This
just
was really
today.
just to
Oh, just
initiate
today.
it. We might do another one again like this, but for now,
Yeah.
this was. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
ThatChannel,
you,
for
everybody.
hosting us. That was
We're
so much fun.
celebrities now.
Now you're all going to be famous, and you can take this and share it, with family and friends.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and gives you something that they can have a look at what we are doing. Probably, So I want to just close it and just say, you guys were awesome, and we also have Vesla, who's done other groups and courses, and she says we're awesome.
Amazing.
We are awesome.
Thank you, Vesla.
Thank you.
But you're awesomest. You're the
We're
most
the awesomest.
And I think
Yeah.
Duncan wanted to say something.
Yes.
Yeah, just two things. On Sunday when I was reading through the book and they were talking about magic and things, and I don't want to get into the connection, but made me think of my transcendental meditation teacher. So I called her up and I went through some of this stuff, and the terminology is different, but the mechanics is identical.
Yeah.
Really?
Really is. She
Beautiful.
said she knew everything.
She understood the concepts.
Oh yeah. So
She
that's-
wants the book.
Just say we're on the right path here. The other thing
Let's get your
that kind
teacher
of
in.
reinforces the strength of this to me is when you talk about the enemy and non-existence. That's what really rang a bell with me, because when you run into groups of people within a certain amount of time, we got to fight against this and we have to fight against that, I don't know, I'm a Gandhi person. I just don't want to fight. But you need to protect yourself. I understand that. But the idea that nothing is the enemy makes so much sense when you read it. You know,
Yeah.
and the fact that, okay, there are people that want to eradicate the world because they want it back to nothing.
Yeah.
You know, if they really follow this, it's like the misinterpretation of the Quran or the Bible and why the world's in such a mess. Well, it's the same with this. That it all comes from the enemy being nothingness, and they want to go back to that because we're so screwed up, as opposed to the fragments are together. Let's put them together. You know, it's magical. It really is. That's
Yeah.
all I had.
That's impossible. That was good.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
does that mean that, does this come from the notion that we're all one because we're all part of the mirror?
Yes, yes. I mean, we are really all part of this divinity, and we're only talking. We're not just talking about what's here on this planet, but everywhere else in this galaxy. You know, it's everywhere. And whatever we are living right now in the cosmos is also part of this divinity, human primordial divinity, and this fragment of the divine, this mirror, is touching all living things. And those of us who are more awake have the divine spark, house the soul, and have this ability to become these bridge forms for this knowledge. And it's also talked about that, you know, as many of these pieces of the mirror that can reattach, and that's why getting together with like-minded people and doing these discussions is so important. That's why Damanhur lives in community. The more of these pieces that we each carry come together, then we create the mirror back. And this is, I mentioned before, and we can reflect that mirror back to the divine forces above and make this jump in evolution. And it doesn't need to be everybody. You know, it's enough of a mass to create a big enough piece that can reflect back divinity back to itself. So those of us that have, you know, woken up to this and want to explore this, it's really important we continue. It's really important we find like-minded people and hold gatherings like this. We are contributing not only to ourselves, but to put in that soul atom that's traveling through everything. We're putting out some good things, and we need to, guys. We need to close it because I know that we've got to
Close it.
Close it. But I'm going to say a big thank you to all of you for showing up here today. Thank you so much, and I will send out information for the next date. And I want to thank ThatChannel for having us on with spiritual physics, and much love to all of you in the Damanhurian way. Convoy. Convoy.
Okay.
Convoy.
Ciao. Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming in
You're
the
so
studio.
welcome. I
And
loved being here. Thank you. It's a lot.
I know.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot. But you break it down well.
And we did 2 hours.
I know.
Like, I
seemed to
can't
like 2
believe
hours.
we did it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Thank
And
you.
thank you for having us. And this is very exciting, and we might do some more. We'll see.
We'll see.
Thank you. Bye.